Today I'm gonna talk about something which you won't find very easily around yourself. Probably this is the most expensive thing in the world. Only a milligram of it costs $100 billion. And this stuff is so dangerous that only a gram of it, I repeat, only 1 gram of it can produce an explosion equivalent to an atom bomb. Enough to destroy a city. So what is it? Let's check out. Hello stargazers, I'm Kushi and you're watching Space Girl. So what is it? Directly speaking, it's just opposite of normal matter. Yes, antimatter. Now since matter is made up of particles, every subatomic particle has its evil twin, an antiparticle. Like antiparticle for proton is antiproton, for electron is antielectron, also called positron, and so on. So to properly understand what's the matter with this antimatter, we need to look at something what is called Standard Model of Particle Physics. The Standard Model is the theory that describes all the elementary particles and 3 of the 4 fundamental forces: electromagnetic, weak and strong force. The 4th one which still remains is gravity. So this theory says that all matter is made up of elementary particles, the basic building blocks of matter. These particles occur in 2 basic types: leptons and quarks. Now each group has 6 particles and these are divided into 3 generations. The lightest and the most stable particles make up the first generation, while heavier and less stable ones belong to second and third generations. The particles with which everything is generally made belong to the first generation. Okay, now here's the distribution. The first generation contains the quarks, up quark and down quark, and leptons, electron and electron neutrino. So obviously atom is made up of electrons, protons and neutrons. Protons and neutrons are made up of up and down quarks. The second generation contains the quarks, charm and strange, and the leptons, muon and muon neutrino. The third generation includes quarks, namely top and bottom, and the leptons, tau and tau neutrino. Well, I must say these names are very creative. So what is the difference between the first generation, second generation and third generation quarks, and also first generation, second generation and third generation leptons? The second and third generation particles are much heavier and more massive than those of first generation. Hence, they are less stable and decay very quickly. So that is the reason why normal matter is made up of particles belonging to first generation and not the second and third ones. Now apart from leptons and quarks, which are the matter particles, we also have forces and carrier particles. Now obviously we need particles for the formation of matter, but these particles also need to interact with each other to build up into matter. So what is responsible for this interaction? So for this we need force, right? We have 4 fundamental forces at work for the interaction between particles. These are electromagnetic force, weak force, strong force, and the most familiar one, the gravitational force. So we have different carrier particles for different forces. For electromagnetic force, we have photons. Weak force is conveyed through W and Z bosons. Strong force is conveyed through gluons. We haven't detected yet the particle which could mediate the gravitational force, but if someday we find it, it will be called a graviton. Okay, we have one more particle in this category. In fact, it is a very special one. It's called the Higgs boson. It is a fundamental particle associated with the Higgs field. It is responsible for giving mass to the particles. And that's it. This is the complete Standard Model. Not quite. Actually, this is just half of the reality. For every single particle in the Standard Model, there exists an antiparticle too. Okay, if such a thing really exists, then why don't we see it around us? Like everything in this room is just made of normal matter and not antimatter. Okay, according to some theories, Big Bang would have created antimatter and matter in equal amounts. But when matter and antimatter meet, they annihilate. What remains behind? By E equals mc squared, thanks to Einstein, we know that mass can be converted into energy and energy can be converted into mass. So they annihilate, leaving nothing but energy behind. Okay, understood. That is why there is no antimatter left today. All of it might have been destroyed after the Big Bang and annihilated with the matter. Well, that's simple. Hey, wait. Didn't I just tell you that Big Bang produced matter and antimatter in equal amounts? So, in that way, all the matter also should have annihilated with antimatter and nothing would have left. You, me, Earth, stars, sun, galaxies, nothing would have formed. What the heck is this? Well, obviously that's not the case today. I am here talking to you, you are there listening to me, and we are all made of matter. Well, that is the mystery. We don't know why is this so. Well, some physicists suggest that there might be some extra matter particles left. For every billion antimatter particles, there might be billion and one matter particles. And that has made all the difference. However, why did that happen is still a puzzle. Okay, this brings me to a question. If there isn't any antimatter left today, then how did we even come to know that it is there? So the whole story begins in 1928 when a British physicist, Paul Dirac, wrote down an equation that combined quantum theory and general relativity. It was meant to describe the behavior of an electron moving at a relativistic speed, but the results of that equation were surprising. Just as the equation x squared equals 4 has two solutions, x equals 2 and x equals minus 2, Paul Dirac's equation also had two solutions. He interpreted that for every particle there exists an anti-version of it, an antiparticle. Those two, particle and antiparticle, would be exactly identical except for the fact that both had opposite electric charges. So for example, if electron is negatively charged, then anti-electron or positron must be positively charged, and the same applies to all the other particles. And only 4 years later, in 1932, Carl Anderson discovered a positron while measuring cosmic rays in an experiment. Well, this is awesome on its own because prediction of an entirely new species of particles even before it was detected in an experiment was not really normal. Alright, all the antimatter was blown off just after the Big Bang. But can we even still find some? Turns out, yes. In fact, we are already making it. For the past 50 years or so, laboratories like Fermilab and CERN have been preparing antiparticles in their particle accelerators. And this is even more interesting. In 1995, CERN for the first time successfully created anti-atoms artificially. But how do they do it? Okay, remember E equals mc squared? So when matter and antimatter collide, they give out energy. But the opposite is also true. So when enough energy is squeezed into a very small space during a high energy particle collision, energy gets converted into antiparticle and particle pairs. This means energy transforms into matter. And this brings me to the fact how expensive antimatter is. Actually, if you thought that diamonds or platinum is the most expensive, then sorry, you were wrong, because antimatter is the most expensive thing on Earth. Okay, in 1999, NASA gave this figure. Per gram cost of antihydrogen is $62.5 trillion. The reason for this stuff being so costly is the difficulty in its production and storage. Storing it is the most hectic job. You cannot just simply keep it in a box. It will annihilate with the particles of the box. In fact, antimatter is so explosive that only 1 gram of it can produce an explosion equivalent to an atom bomb. However, till the date, humans have made only a minuscule amount of it, not even enough to make a cup of coffee. But why are we so interested in antimatter? Why is it so special to us? it turns out that antimatter can be used in very amazing ways. Antimatter has got its uses in medical purposes. PET, positron emission tomography, uses positrons to produce high-resolution images of the body. In fact, some scientists are studying antimatter as a potential candidate for cancer therapy. Now, antimatter can also be used as a fuel in spacecrafts. Just a handful of antimatter can produce immense amount of power, making it a very popular fuel for interstellar travel in science fiction. Alpha Centauri is the star nearest to our Sun. It is 4.4 light years away from us. The fastest spacecraft so far launched travels at a speed of 250,000 kilometers per hour. But even at that speed, it will take 18,000 years for it to reach Alpha Centauri. And this one is even more disgusting. Voyager 1 will take 40,000 years to reach Alpha Centauri. Now imagine this. If we use antimatter, we can reach Alpha Centauri in not more than 200 years. Well, this seems plausible. In fact, it is far better than the previous two. However, cost of production and storage is a huge barrier. So as of now, we can only expect antimatter to be used as a fuel in science fiction movies. Okay, there is one more way in which antimatter can be used. It can be used in the form of weapons. Well, obviously this is not a very cool use of it. Using one of the greatest discoveries in science as a means of destruction isn't a good idea. Okay, before I go, I've got two more fun facts for you. Number 1. Antimatter is closer to you than you thought. Bananas produce antimatter. No, seriously, it produces one positron every 75 minutes. This is because bananas contain potassium 40, which is an isotope of potassium. So when it decays, it spits out a positron. Well, our bodies also contain potassium 40. So positrons are being emitted from you too. However, they immediately annihilate when they come in contact with normal matter. Number 2. Some physicists think that antimatter behaves differently from normal matter towards gravity. So if matter falls down, antimatter might fall up. However, some think that this is not the case. Well, experiments are being planned to test this and we don't know until we test it. Alright then, until we meet again, keep stargazing.